Marcus Kane had learned to appreciate silence. After 15 years in the Army's most classified unit, Delta Force's Ghost Squadron, he'd earned his peace. The small town of Millbrook seemed perfect tree-lined streets, friendly neighbors, and most importantly, no one who knew his past. His only companion was Ranger, a German shepherd he'd adopted from a military kennel. The dog had washed out of the K9 program for being too gentle, which suited Marcus just fine. He'd seen enough violence for both of them. Every morning, Marcus and Ranger walked through Riverside Park. Marcus wore simple clothes, jeans, a flannel shirt, work boots. His muscular frame was hidden under loose clothing, and he kept his head down. To everyone in Millbrook, he was just another quiet black man who kept to himself, but quiet didn't mean invisible. It started on a Tuesday evening. Marcus was walking Ranger along the park's edge when he heard them loud voices, the crack of beer cans, the particular edge of malice that comes from young men looking for trouble. 5 of them blocked the path ahead. Marcus recognized the type immediately, white supremacists, judging by the tattoos visible on their arms. The leader, a tall man with a shaved head and a cobra tattoo on his neck, stepped forward. Well, Cobra said, his voice dripping with contempt. Look what we got here. You lost, boy? Marcus kept his voice level, non-threatening. Just walking my dog. We'll go around. Nah, I don't think so. Another one, shorter and stocky, moved to block their path. This is our park. We don't want your kind here. Ranger growled softly. Marcus put a hand on the dog's head, keeping him calm. I don't want any trouble. Too late for that, Cobra said, pulling out a collapsible baton. You and that mutt need to learn some respect. The first one lunged for Ranger with a kick. That was their mistake. What happened next took 7 seconds. Marcus moved with the fluid precision of a man who'd spent years training for exactly this kind of situation. He deflected the kick aimed at Ranger, grabbed the attacker's leg, and swept him to the ground with a move that dislocated the man's knee. The second attacker swung a chain. Marcus ducked under it, stepped inside his guard, and delivered 3 rapid strikes: solar plexus, throat, temple. The man dropped like a stone. Cobra came at him with the baton. Marcus caught his wrist mid-swing, twisted it until something cracked, and used the man's own momentum to flip him onto his back. The baton skittered away. The last 2 hesitated. That moment of indecision was fatal to their chances. Marcus closed the distance before they could react, using non-lethal but incapacitating strikes. In 7 seconds, all 5 men were on the ground, groaning in pain. Marcus stood over them, breathing normally, not even winded. Ranger sat beside him, tail wagging, thinking this was some kind of game. Stay down, Marcus said quietly. The police are already on their way. He'd pressed his emergency alert during the first second of the confrontation, muscle memory from years of tactical operations. Detective Sarachin arrived within minutes, followed by backup. She found a scene that didn't make sense: 5 large men injured on the ground, and 1 calm man standing with his dog. What happened here? She asked Marcus. Self-defense, he said simply. They attacked me and my dog. I defended us. The gang members told a different story, claiming Marcus had attacked them unprovoked. But then Sarah noticed something: every injury Marcus had inflicted was precise, controlled. This wasn't a brawl. This was surgical. Who are you? She asked quietly. Just a resident of Millbrook, Marcus replied, but Sarah was thorough. She ran his ID, and what came back made her eyes widen. Most of Marcus's file was classified, but what she could see was enough: special forces, multiple commendations, expert in close-quarters combat, sniper qualified, specialist in counter-terrorism operations. The gang members had attacked one of the Army's most lethal operators. News spread quickly. The gang members were arrested. 2 of them had outstanding warrants, and all 5 faced assault charges. But they weren't the only problem. Cobra, real name Derek Mason, was connected to a larger white supremacist organization called the Iron Cross. When news reached them that one of their members had been humiliated by a black man, they wanted revenge. Marcus knew they'd come. He'd faced down terrorists in 3 continents. Racist thugs didn't scare him. But this was different. This was his home, his sanctuary. He'd left the military to escape violence, not to bring it to a quiet town. The Iron Cross's regional leader, a man named Victor Krause, issued orders: make an example of Marcus Kane. They came 3 nights later. 10 men, armed with bats, chains, and 2 carrying firearms. They surrounded Marcus's small house on the edge of town, confident in their numbers. Marcus had been expecting them. He'd set up surveillance cameras, motion sensors, and had already called the police. But he knew they were 15 minutes away. He had to buy time. He moved Ranger to the safe room, a reinforced closet he'd built specifically for emergencies. Stay, he commanded. The dog obeyed, sensing his master's tension. The first Molotov cocktail crashed through his front window. Marcus didn't panic. He activated his fire suppression system, another precaution, and moved to his defensive positions. He wouldn't kill these men if he could avoid it, but he would protect his home. When they breached the front door, they found darkness and silence. Marcus had cut the power. He'd fought in darkness in Fallujah, in the mountains of Afghanistan, in classified operations across the globe. These men were stumbling in his territory now. He used non-lethal tactics, flashbangs he'd legally purchased, smoke grenades, sound disorientation devices. He moved through his own house like a ghost, taking them down one by one with precision strikes. By the time Victor Krauss made it inside, 7 of his men were unconscious or incapacitated. Marcus confronted Victor in his living room. The white supremacist leader held a pistol, but his hand was shaking. "You should have left town," Victor snarled. "You should have known your place." "My place?" Marcus's voice was cold. "I've served this country for 15 years. I've taken bullets defending the Constitution. I've saved lives of every color and creed. And you're nothing but a coward who hides behind hate because you're afraid of the world changing around you. I'll kill you." Victor screamed, raising the gun. Marcus had already moved. Years of training against armed opponents made this almost routine. He disarmed Victor with a technique that broke 2 of the man's fingers, then swept his legs out from under him. Red and blue lights filled the windows. The police had arrived, along with FBI agents. Sarah Chin had called them when she learned about the Iron Cross connection. The arrests made national news. 10 members of the Iron Cross were charged with attempted murder, arson, and conspiracy. Victor Krauss faced additional charges for leading a domestic terrorism organization. Marcus's identity couldn't be completely hidden anymore. The story spread: a decorated army veteran attacked by racists, defending himself and his home against overwhelming odds. But fame wasn't what Marcus wanted. He stood in front of his damaged house, Ranger by his side, wondering if Millbrook could still be home. Detective Sarah Chin approached him. "The town council wants to give you a commendation," she said. Marcus shook his head. "I don't need recognition. I just want peace." "You saved yourself, and you probably saved this town from worse violence down the line," Sarah continued. "But I understand. You didn't ask for any of this." Over the following weeks, something unexpected happened. Neighbors who'd barely acknowledged Marcus before started stopping by. They helped repair his house. They brought food. They introduced themselves properly. An elderly white woman named Mrs. Henderson brought him a pie. "I'm ashamed," she said simply. "Ashamed that you weren't welcomed here properly, ashamed that you had to defend yourself in what should have been a safe place. Thank you for your service, both in the army and here." 6 months later, Marcus stood in the renovated Riverside Park. The town had installed better lighting and security cameras. They'd also put up a memorial to veterans of all backgrounds who'd served the nation. Ranger bounded ahead, chasing a frisbee thrown by one of the local kids. Marcus had started a youth program, teaching discipline and self-defense to any child who wanted to learn, regardless of race or background. Sarah Chin joined him on the bench. "You could have left," she said. "After everything, no one would have blamed you." "I thought about it," Marcus admitted. "But running away isn't who I am. I didn't serve my country just to abandon my home when it got hard. This town is better than those men who attacked me. I wanted to give it a chance to prove that." "And has it?" Marcus smiled, watching the diverse group of children playing together in the park. "Getting there. Change takes time. But I'm patient." He thought about his years in the service, about the brothers and sisters in arms of every race and religion who'd fought beside him. He thought about what he'd fought for, not just a piece of land, but an idea. The idea that everyone deserved dignity, safety, and the chance to live in peace. "You know what's funny?" Marcus said. "Those racists thought my skin color made me weak, made me less than them. They never realized that what makes America strong isn't how we look, but how we stand together. I learned that in the military. Took me longer to learn it could be true in civilian life too." Marcus Kane never sought recognition for what happened. The military honors he'd earned remained largely classified. But in Millbrook, he became something more important than a hero. He became a neighbor, a teacher, and a quiet reminder that courage isn't about the color of your skin or where you come from. It's about standing up when standing up is hard. It's about defending what's right, even when you're outnumbered. And it's about believing in your community, even when your community needs to learn to believe in you. Ranger, blissfully unaware of the deeper meanings, just knew that his human was good at belly rubs and that the park had become his favorite place. And sometimes, that simple truth that kindness and loyalty transcend all the artificial divisions humans create was the most powerful lesson of all. 3 months after the incident, a journalist named Amanda Torres arrived in Millbrook. She worked for a major investigative news outlet and had gotten a tip about Marcus's story. But she wasn't interested in the surface narrative. She wanted to know who Marcus Kane really was. "Mr. Kane, I've been digging into your background," she said when she found him at the community center where he taught his youth classes. Or at least, trying to. Most of your military record is classified. But I found something interesting. Marcus continued wrapping boxing gloves on a young student's hands. I'm not interested in interviews. Operation Silent Thunder. Karachi, 2019. A terrorist cell planning to bomb an embassy. 12 hostages, including American diplomats. The entire cell neutralized, all hostages rescued without a single casualty. The official report says Special Operations Forces, but my source says it was one man who went in alone. Marcus's hands paused for just a fraction of a second. Your source is mistaken. Was it you? He looked at her directly. Ms. Torres, I did my job. I came home. I want to live quietly. That's all. But Amanda saw something in his eyes, not pride, but a deep weariness. What happened over there, Mr. Kane? What made you leave? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, I'll give you an interview. But not for publication. Background only. So you understand why some stories should stay buried. They met at Marcus's house that evening. Ranger lay at his feet as Marcus spoke, staring into a coffee cup, seeing memories instead of the present. You want to know who I was? I was the man they sent when every other option failed. Hostage rescue, targeted elimination of high-value targets, deep reconnaissance. I speak 4 languages fluently, 6 more conversationally. I can assemble 50 different weapons systems blindfolded. I've jumped out of perfectly good aircraft over 100 times and rappelled from helicopters in combat conditions. He paused, his jaw tight. I've killed 47 people in the line of duty. Every one of them was an enemy combatant. Every one of them was legally sanctioned. And every one of them haunts me. Amanda listened, not interrupting. The last mission, that's what broke me. Syria, 2023. We had intel on a chemical weapons facility. My team was supposed to recon only, but we found something worse. They were holding children, planning to use them as test subjects. Command ordered us to extract and wait for a larger force. His voice dropped to almost a whisper. I couldn't wait. I went in alone. Saved 19 kids. But in the firefight, the facility was damaged. Some of the chemicals, 3 of those children died from exposure before we could get them medical help. Died in my arms. You saved 16, Amanda said softly. I failed 3. Marcus looked up, and Amanda saw the pain in his eyes. I've been trained to complete missions, to make hard choices, to sacrifice if necessary. But when you hold a dying child and there's nothing you can do, that's when you realize you can't do this anymore. I submitted my resignation the next day. So you came here to escape? I came here to remember what I was fighting for. Not missions, not operations, not targets. People. Communities. The simple right to live without fear. And then those racists attacked me, and for a moment, I was back in combat mode. It was automatic, instinctive. That scared me more than they did. Amanda closed her notebook. This is an incredible story. It's a private story, Marcus said firmly. Those kids I couldn't save deserve better than to be turned into a headline. The ones I did save deserve their privacy. And I deserve a chance to be more than my worst day and my best mission. Amanda nodded slowly. Okay. Background only, like you said. But can I ask one more question? Go ahead. Do you regret your service? Marcus smiled for the first time. Not for a second. I regret what war forced me to become, but not what I fought for. The men and women I served with were the best humanity has to offer, every race, every background, united by something bigger than ourselves. That's the America I want to live in. That's the America I'm trying to build right here in Millbrook. A week after his conversation with Amanda, Marcus received an encrypted message on an old secure phone he'd kept from his military days. He hadn't heard from this network in over a year. The message was from his former commanding officer, Colonel James Hammer Morrison. Marcus, we have a problem. Check the news. Call me on secure line. Marcus turned on the television. Breaking news showed chaos in downtown Chicago, a hostage situation at a federal building. The demands were specific: release of several imprisoned terrorists, including members of the Iron Cross organization, but what made Marcus's blood run cold was the face on the screen. The lead hostage taker was Dmitry Volkov, a former Russian Spetsnaz operative who'd gone rogue. Marcus knew him well, they'd faced each other twice before. In Chechnya, Marcus had stopped Volkov from assassinating a reformist politician. In Yemen, Marcus had disrupted Volkov's arms-dealing operation. Volkov knew exactly who had been responsible both times. Even though Marcus had operated in the shadows, Marcus called the secure line. Hammer, tell me this isn't what I think it is. It's worse, Colonel Morrison said. Volkov has 20 hostages. He's demanded 3 things: money, safe passage, and you. He specifically asked for the ghost of Delta. He's been tracking you, Marcus. This is personal. How did he find me? The news coverage of your incident in Millbrook. Your face wasn't publicized, but Volkov has resources. He put it together. Marcus, he's threatening to execute 1 hostage every hour until you surrender yourself. Marcus felt the old familiar feeling, the cold calm that came before action. What's the official response? FBI has a hostage rescue team on site, but Volkov's fortified his position. He's got the building wired with explosives. Any assault will result in mass casualties. They're negotiating, but he's serious about his demands. The government can't and won't trade you. They shouldn't have to, Marcus said quietly. Send me the building schematics, security layouts, and current tactical assessment. Marcus, you're retired. You're not cleared for this. People are going to die, Hammer. Every hour we wait, another innocent person is executed. You know what I can do. You know I'm the only one who's faced Volkov and lived. There was a long pause. Unofficially, if I sent you those files, and if you happened to be in Chicago for personal reasons, I couldn't stop you from being a concerned citizen. But officially, this conversation never happened. Understood. Marcus made arrangements quickly. He called Sarah Chen, asking her to look after Ranger. I have to go out of town for a few days. Family emergency. Sarah looked at him skeptically. This wouldn't have anything to do with Chicago, would it? I can't talk about it. She handed him a card. My cousin works for Chicago PD, Detective Michael Chen. If you need local support, he's solid. And Marcus? Come back in one piece. This town needs you. Marcus drove through the night, arriving in Chicago at dawn. He studied the schematics on his laptop, memorizing every detail of the federal building. Volkov had chosen well. The building was a fortress, with limited entry points and excellent sightlines, but Marcus knew something Volkov didn't. During his time in Delta, Marcus had trained in that very building during urban warfare exercises. He knew about the maintenance tunnels, the ventilation system access points, and the structural weaknesses. He contacted Detective Chen, identifying himself and explaining the situation in vague terms. I can't give you details, but I have experience with this hostage taker. I need equipment and a way onto the perimeter. Chen made 2 calls, and 20 minutes later, Marcus had a tactical vest, communications equipment, and credentials identifying him as a federal consultant. It wasn't legal, and they both knew it, but lives were at stake. At 3 a.m., while negotiations continued and FBI teams maintained their perimeter, Marcus slipped into the maintenance tunnels beneath the federal building. He moved in complete darkness, using night vision goggles and his intimate knowledge of the layout. The tunnels were dusty and cramped, but Marcus had operated in worse conditions. He found the ventilation access point. He was looking for a shaft that led directly into the building's basement level, below where Volkov had set up his command center. It took him 45 minutes to bypass Volkov's security measures on the shaft. The man was professional, Marcus had to admit. Pressure sensors, motion detectors, even a simple thread and bell system. But Marcus had been doing this when Volkov was still in basic training, emerged into the basement storage area. According to the thermal imaging the FBI had provided, Volkov had 6 armed men distributed throughout the building, with the hostages centralized on the 3rd floor. Volkov himself was in the security center on the 2nd floor, monitoring everything. Marcus's plan was simple: neutralize the guards silently, cut off Volkov's communications and surveillance, then take him down before he could trigger the explosives. Simple, but not easy. The first guard was patrolling the ground floor. Marcus waited in the shadows until the man passed, then moved behind him with perfect silence. A sleeper hold, applied with precision. The guard was unconscious in seconds, zip-tied and gagged. 1 down. 5 to go. The 2nd and 3rd guards were together, talking in low voices near the stairwell. Marcus couldn't take them both simultaneously without raising an alarm. He needed a distraction. He found the electrical panel and triggered a localized power fault, just enough to knock out lights in one section. As the guards moved to investigate, Marcus took them down one after another, using pressure points and joint locks he'd mastered over years of training. The 4th guard was more problematic, positioned in the hallway directly outside the hostage room. Marcus couldn't approach without being seen. He used an old sniper's trick. He created a sound distraction at the far end of the hall by dropping a small object down a ventilation shaft, then moved as the guard's attention shifted. The man barely had time to register movement before Marcus's strike dropped him. Guards 5 and 6 were professionals, positioned with overlapping fields of fire. Marcus studied their pattern for 10 minutes, waiting for the moment when their attention would naturally shift. When it came, he moved like smoke. 2 flashbang grenades, perfectly timed and placed. In the disorientation that followed, Marcus neutralized both guards with rapid precision strikes. Now for Volkov. Marcus found Volkov exactly where he expected, in the security center, surrounded by monitors. But Volkov was smiling when Marcus entered. "The ghost," Volkov said in accented English. "I knew you would come. I counted on it. Let the hostages go, Dmitri. This is between us." Yes it is. You have haunted me, ghost. Twice you have destroyed my operations. Twice you have made me look like fool. Today, that ends." Volkov pressed a button. On the monitors, Marcus saw explosives throughout the building illuminate with red arming lights. "Dead man's switch," Volkov said, holding up a detonator. "You kill me, everyone dies. You surrender, I maybe let them live. Maybe." Marcus calculated angles, distances, probabilities. Volkov was 10 feet away, behind a reinforced desk. The detonator was in his hand, thumb on the trigger. Even with Marcus's speed, he couldn't close the distance before Volkov could press it. "What do you want?" Marcus asked. "I want you to know failure, as you made me know it. I want you to watch innocents die because of your choices. Then I want you dead." "There's always another choice," Marcus said quietly. "Not today." But Marcus had seen something Volkov hadn't, a reflection in one of the monitors. FBI sniper teams had finally gotten into position on surrounding buildings. And one of them had a line of sight through the security center window. Marcus had kept his borrowed communications equipment active. He tapped out a code on the mic switch: 3 short, 3 long, 3 short. SOS. Then he did something that surprised even himself. He smiled. "You're right, Dmitri. You finally got me. I surrender." Volkov's eyes narrowed with suspicion. "Why do you smile?" "Because I just realized something. I spent 2 years trying to stop being the ghost, trying to be just a regular man in a regular town. But tonight I remembered what I told a reporter: I don't regret my service. Not for a second." Marcus took a step forward. "And that includes ending threats like you. Another step and I detonate." "No, you won't. Because that's not what this is about. You want to beat me, face to face. You want to prove you're better than the ghost. The explosives are just insurance. But here I am, Dmitri. No weapons, no backup, just you and me." Volkov's finger tightened on the trigger, but Marcus saw the hesitation. Pride. The old soldier's ego. "Put down the detonator and face me. Or spend the rest of your life knowing you only won because of a button." It was the calculated risk Marcus had been trained to take, reading an opponent, understanding their psychology, exploiting their weakness. Volkov's weakness was his pride. Volkov said slowly. "Let us finish this properly." He set the detonator on the desk, not releasing it, but creating the opening Marcus needed. Volkov reached for his sidearm. The sniper's shot came through the window at 2,800 feet per second. It hit Volkov's hand, destroying the gun he was reaching for and spinning him away from the desk. Marcus was already moving, diving across the desk, securing the detonator before Volkov could recover. FBI teams breached the building simultaneously. The hostages were secured within minutes. Volkov, wounded but alive, was taken into custody. Marcus sat in a Chicago FBI office, being debriefed by people with security clearances that made his head hurt. Colonel Morrison was there too, looking both impressed and exasperated. "That was reckless, unsanctioned, and completely against protocol," Morrison said. "Yes, sir. It was also brilliant, brave, and saved 20 lives." "Thank you, sir." Morrison sighed. "Marcus, I'm not going to ask you to come back. I know why you left, and I respect it. But situations like this, we need people like you. Not full-time, not active duty. But when the worst happens and conventional options won't work, would you consider consulting?" Marcus thought about it. About the children he'd saved in Syria and the ones he couldn't. About the hostages tonight who went home to their families. About the balance between peace and duty. "On a case-by-case basis," he said finally. "And only when there's no other option. I'm not the ghost anymore, Hammer. I'm just Marcus Kane, trying to live a good life. But if innocent people need help and I'm the only one who can provide it, I won't say no. That's all I can ask." Marcus returned to Millbrook 3 days later. The story had made news. Former Special Operations soldier assists in hostage rescue, but details were scarce and his identity protected. Ranger nearly knocked him over with enthusiastic welcome. Sarah Chin handed him the leash with a knowing smile. "So, family emergency?" "Something like that. Marcus, whatever you did, whatever you are, this town is lucky to have you. Don't forget that." The next morning, Marcus was back in the park with Ranger, watching the sunrise. Amanda Torres found him there. I heard about Chicago, she said. I'm not going to ask if it was you. But I wanted you to know, I kept my word. Your story stays private. I appreciate that. But I did write something. Not about you specifically, but about veterans who struggle to find their place after service, about communities that need to do better welcoming them home. It published this morning. She showed him the article on her phone. It was thoughtful, powerful, and didn't mention Marcus by name. But it captured everything he'd been trying to express about the gap between military service and civilian life. It's good, Marcus said. Really good. It's important, Amanda corrected. And for what it's worth, I think you found your place. Not as the ghost, not as a killer, but as someone who protects people. That's who you've always been, whether in Karachi or Millbrook. 6 months later, Marcus stood in front of a packed community center. His youth program had grown 50 kids now, from every background in Millbrook and neighboring towns. They were learning discipline, respect, and self-defense, but more importantly, they were learning about service and community. Among the students were 2 kids who'd been part of gangs until Marcus intervened. 3 others came from abusive homes and found sanctuary in the structure Marcus provided. One young woman, Sophia, had been so inspired that she was applying to West Point. Mr. Kane taught me that strength isn't about hurting people, Sophia said during a local news interview. It's about protecting them. That's what I want to do with my life. Marcus watched from the back of the room, pride swelling in his chest. This was his mission now, not eliminating threats, but preventing them by giving young people purpose and direction. Ranger, now a therapy dog certified to work with the students, lay contentedly as children petted him between classes. That evening, Marcus received another encrypted message. Not from Colonel Morrison, but from one of the hostages he'd helped rescue in Chicago, a federal judge who'd been working on dismantling hate group networks. Mr. Kane, because of your actions, I'm alive to continue my work. We've just secured indictments against 47 members of white supremacist organizations, including the leadership of the Iron Cross. The group that attacked you has been effectively dismantled. I thought you'd want to know your fight in that park started something bigger than either of us realized. Thank you. Marcus smiled and deleted the message. He didn't need recognition or thanks. He just needed to know that his actions, both the violent ones he regretted and the protective ones he embraced, had meaning. Years later, when people told stories about Marcus Kane, they didn't talk about the missions or the combat record. They talked about Coach Kane, who'd turned dozens of troubled kids into confident, principled young adults. They talked about the quiet man who stopped a hate group from taking root in their town. They talked about the neighbor who helped elderly residents with home repairs and never accepted payment. The ghost of Delta Force became just Marcus Kane, community member, youth mentor, and guardian of Millbrook. But on quiet nights, when he walked Ranger through the park he'd once defended with violence, Marcus thought about the dual nature of strength, the power to destroy and the wisdom to protect. He'd mastered both, and he'd learned when to use each. The old warrior had found his peace, not by abandoning who he was, but by finding the best way to use his skills. Not as a weapon, but as a shield. Ranger barked happily at a squirrel, blissfully unaware of his master's philosophical musings. Marcus laughed and threw a tennis ball, watching the dog bound after it with pure, uncomplicated joy. Maybe that was the real lesson, Marcus thought. Sometimes the most complicated lives lead to the simplest truths. Protect those who can't protect themselves, stand up for what's right, and always, always make time to throw the ball for your dog. The ghost had finally found his home.